Hello, my name is Nathan Johnson. I'm doing a presentation on OAuth 2.0 for computer security, ICS 482 at Metropolitan State University in St. Paul, Minnesota. Our professor is Faisal Kaleem. This is for the summer 2017 term. So why OAuth? OAuth is a way for an app or service to request limited access to resources from a different service. And you've seen this before, I'm sure. For example, when you put an app on your phone and then it wants to access your Facebook contacts. Or whenever you use PayPal, that's also OAuth. Some developers out there may have used GitHub. GitHub uses OAuth. Here's a screenshot of Google's OAuth service. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how OAuth works, the flow, and then we're going to do a specific example with Google. So if you have let's say you're writing an app and you want it to be able to access somebody's email, you could just ask for that person's password. However, the problem is if you give out your password to an app, you have no control over how the app can use that password. If it was Gmail, for example, that app could read, delete, and send email. Since your password for Gmail is the same as other Google services, it could also access your Google Drive account or even your Google Wallet. And it would have this access until you change your password. The password never expires. Furthermore, the app may be storing their password on the cell phone in an unsecure manner, and so other malicious apps could go and access that information. So OAuth was created in order to solve this problem. One thing it does is it gives you very granular control over the permissions that you grant. So using OAuth, I can grant permission for an app just to, say, read my emails. Can't send it, can't delete it, can't access Google Drive, anything like this. Also, by default, it's going to put a time limit on that access. For Google's case, the time limit is 1 hour. And finally, the app never knows your password, and so you don't have to worry about the security. So, how do we use OAuth? This is the formal spec here. Will take you back to the 80s. It's a request for comments. If you're familiar with RFCs, you'll know what I'm talking about, but you can read that if you're very technically minded. What you're going to want to do, though, is look at the API for the particular service that you want to use. So in this case, since we're going to be working with Google, we would go to this right here, and you could just type in the search engine Google's OAuth API, and you would get this link. Okay, so how does OAuth actually work? I apologize, this diagram is kind of busy. So down at the bottom here, we have the app that is going to request access to your emails. So these numbers kind of indicate the flow. So one is the app will first create an HTTP request to an OAuth server. Okay, in this case, the OAuth server is managed by Google. And it's going to say, hey, I want to access emails from so-and-so. So the OAuth server has to recognize your app. Your app has to be registered with that server. If it recognizes your app, then it sends a request to the user. The user has to give the permission. That was that page we saw earlier. Do you want to let such and such access your emails? If the login is correct and the person agrees, then the OAuth server sends back an authorization code. Okay, and we'll see what that looks like, but it just comes as part of the URL. Then the app will take that authorization code and it will create a request for a token. Again, to the OAuth server, but to a different URL on the OAuth server, end with /token usually. If everything seems legit, then the OAuth server returns the token. Then the app creates a request to the Gmail server, or whatever resource server it is, incorporating that token. The server will then verify the token by the Gmail service will verify the token by contacting the OAuth server, and the OAuth server will then grant or deny permission. Assuming it grants permission, then finally Gmail will send back the information you requested. Okay. If you look on the Google API page, you can see a sort of a UML diagram for that. This is cleaner, although I think it obscures the fact that the Google service here, you're dealing with more than one entity. So, in summary, the basic steps are: you request the authorization code from the OAuth server, then at least this is from the point of view of your app, right? So you're requesting authorization code from the OAuth server, then your app uses the authorization code to request the token, then we use the token to request the resource. Okay. Now, the first request is done with HTTP, so you just post that into your browser. However, the second two requests are what they're called post requests, and so you can't do that by just pasting something into your browser. You have to use some service that can do posts. In this case, I downloaded a program to do that. So before we can start and go through our example, we do have some prerequisites. Okay, I mentioned that we need to do post requests. So curl is the program, or CURL is sometimes called, is a program we're going to use to do that. It's a very well-known program. It claims to be the internet transfer backbone for thousands of software applications affecting billions of humans daily. So it's a very small, lightweight utility that can, create post requests among many other things. I recommend making a dummy Gmail account to practice this with, but that is optional. And then finally, the big one is we have to register our app with the OAuth server. Okay, to register, why we register the app with the OAuth server? Well, I mentioned that before. When you make that first request to the OAuth server, you have to already be registered. So when we do this, go through this process, we're going to get a redirect URI. That is the URL that the server is going to return to us that has the authorization code in it. The server is going to assign us a client ID, and it's going to assign us a client secret. Okay, so how do we do this registration? Well, there's a number of ways. You can just go straight to the API and walk through it, so that's what we're going to do now. Okay, so here's the Google OAuth2 page, and you can see right away, right here, basic steps. It kind of walks us through it. So we're going to go to the API console here. Now, here you can be signed in for under your dummy account or under your regular account. It doesn't matter. I'm signed in under my dummy account. It's going to ask us to select a project. But we don't have a project, so we're going to create a project. Project name, I'm going to call this OAuth Demo. I'm not going to bother with emailing it. I will agree to the terms of service. Create. Okay. Now we have all these APIs here. We'll talk a little bit about that a little bit more about that later. In this case, we're interested in Gmail, so we click on Gmail down there, and we're going to enable it. I thought I created a project, but we'll try that again. You will probably get a snappier response. Okay, so now you have to click on Enable up here. I'm enabling this API. Okay, now we do the Create Credentials. This is where we're going to get the client ID, etc., etc. Now this right here, Gmail API, is fine. Where we'll be calling it from, we want to do web browser. What data, we'll be accessing user data. And then what credentials do I need? Web client 1 is fine. Now here you can see that we need a URL that we're requesting it from, but actually it's not important. You can put in anything, and so you can see it has this example here, but it doesn't actually register that. You have to type it in. Similarly, we have this redirect URI down here. We have to type that in too. I think that's what I used. OAuth2, oh no, OAuth2 callback. Oops, I didn't save it. Let's try that one more time. Okay, once we put that in, we have the www.example.com, www.example.com. Whoops, I gotta edit that. OAuth2 callback. Okay, we hit create client ID. Product name to show to users. I'm going to call this OAuth demo. Okay, so here's the client ID. We're going to need this, but I'm going to grab it later, and I'm just going to hit done. Okay, now here in the Credentials tab, if you log back into the API console, this will just be here, and you can click on it. And then you can get the client ID and the client secret, and for reference, your the origin that you're going to be requesting from, and the redirect URI is going to be saved here too. Now the redirect URI is used by the server to reply to your request, and we'll see how that works in a second here. Okay. So I've done that. Now, next what we have to do is when you're making an HTTP request, you can't just paste an HTTP address into the other HTTP address. So you have to do something called URL encode. So in this case, this was our URL. This is what it looks like when you run it through a URL encoder. And that's easy. You can just find it by Googling or Binging a URL encoder. You paste the URL into here, you hit encode, and it gives you the encoded version. Okay, now we're going to do the first step. We're going to request an authorization from the user, and we're going to create a big URL like this in order to do that. So I made this little sheet here so we can see what it is that we're looking for. After we registered our app, we got the redirect URI, we created that, we got the client ID, we got the client secret, and then what we do is into this kind of template right here, you're going to paste in that redirect URI, and you're going to paste in your client ID. And you don't need to use the client secret at this stage. Scope we're going to talk about future in the future. For now, this is the scope we want to use, which is just basically means that we want to be able to access the Gmail service. Okay, so copy this, and you can get this from the from Google's API page, the template. I suggest when you're working with this stuff, these long URLs, that you copy them into a notepad or something so you can make sure that there aren't any hidden carriage returns or funky characters going on, because you want to just paste plain text into your browser. Okay, so we paste that URL into here. It's going to access to for authorization. I'm authorizing it under this account here. Now it gave me this error here, but you can see up here it gave me a code. This is the redirect URI, www.example.com/OAuth2, and then it has this question mark code equals, and it gives me a code, and that's the code I'm going to use to request the token. Okay, this code will change frequently. So once you get that code, then we're going to do our post request, and we're going to use curl for that, so that's why it says curl here. You put the code in after this. Again, I would recommend pasting it into a notepad. You gotta have an and there too. Sometimes that gets cut off. And here's our redirect URI. Here is that client ID from before, and here is the client secret from before. And the rest of this stuff is in the Google API. So again, you want to paste it into a notepad. I'm just going to go ahead and let's change that right there. You can see that you don't have any funky carriage returns here. Copy this. Now to do our curl request, I'm going to go to the binary subfolder of the directory where I installed curl. We'll paste this. Okay. Here we get our token. You can see it's quite long. Oops. I don't want that. So let's copy this. This is the token we need. to make a request. You can see also expires in 3600 seconds. That is, well, we can do the parentheses on there. That's 1 hour. Now, again, this is just a template. And one thing we need here is the resource access token, so I put that in. I don't need double quotes there. I put this here just to show that this is, just one long URL with, well, it's not a URL, one long header, and it has well, it's not one long header. It's this first part is the header, and then the second part is the address. Now, you have to fill in your email address here that we're using. Okay. Then we got all that. I'm going to put into here to see if looks like it's okay. It looks like it's okay. It's just text. And then we go back to our command prompt and we put that in. And we get an error because I should not have these quotes here, that quote there. And go back to here, because that whole code is just part of the header. Okay, so this is what I get from this. I just get I get a very long string of emails, and it just gives me the ID. Now, if I want to read one of these emails, I would just put a slash, and I put the email ID token after this. I have no idea what this email is. But I think it's interesting. Take a peek at it. So there's an awful lot of information in here. And this is, of course, this is what your program would be parsing. This seems kind of extreme here, but there really is somewhere in here you can see it's going to have the information you need, like what the text is and lots of other attributes. So that's the basic process. Now the first time that you do this, you may get an error because Google doesn't let any app request permission to access confidential data even after you've registered your app with the OAuth server. You also have to tell Google that it's okay for your account to be accessed by this app that you have created that hasn't been vetted by Google. And so for that you go to this developer form. That's why I suggest you may want to create a dummy email account, because basically what it tells you to do is allow risky access permissions by unreviewed apps. You can see that down here. You go to this and then you click on this risky access permissions by unreviewed apps. This is while you're logged in to the account that you want to access. And then you just join the group. It takes you to here. You just join this group, and when you join the group, you are set. You can access your, this is the response it gives you, but you can access your emails with that with those codes you got. Okay, it's hard to see, so I just magnified here that first request we made through the browser to get the authorization code. It comes back like this, right? So you would have to parse that just to get that code there. This was the first request for the access token, so we used that code up here. This code equals, that's where we pasted that in, and it returned this to us, and this access token, and that's what we used to get our final information. Now, two more things. I mentioned earlier that scope was something I wanted to talk about. So there's this site called developersgoogle.com OAuth Playground, and here you can get an idea of what scope options are available to you for different APIs, and also what the format of the response is going to look like, so that you can write a program to parse the response. So let's take a look at that. See if we can find OAuth Playground. Okay. So here's an example of an email that I did, that I retrieved. It was just a plain text email. It doesn't have so much junk in it as that one that we were looking at earlier in the command prompt. Okay. So let's see how you do this. So you can see we have all these different APIs here. I'm going to go back to the Gmail API. Now here are all, these are all the different scopes, okay, for Gmail. I'm just going to do a simple one here, and you see you can click on it and see what the different scopes are. And so double click on that. I'm going to go ahead and this time I'm going to authorize this other account here. Okay, it's created the authorization code, so that's basically what we got last time when we created that request. Now, after we get the authorization code, we have to get the token, so that's what this does here. And here's the access token. Now finally, we create the we create the request. And what do I want? I just want the plain, like, list our email, list the emails. List the drafts. Updates labels. We're going to use this one in a minute. List all the messages in the user's email box. Okay, so I double click on that, and I send the request. Oh, you see here where this user ID is highlighted, I have to type in that my email address there. So for this one I'm using let's see, let's try that again. I think I overtyped. Okay, I just overtyped on my slash. So, and J. Johnson. Okay, so this is the response I get. So if I wanted to write a program to parse these responses, this would give me an example of what it looks like. And you can see has all the different IDs, and if I wanted to see what one of these looks like, then I know that I just go slash and put that in there, send the request. Okay, and now here you can see all the information you get when you request an email by ID. You get the type, you get when it was received, all this stuff here that is just, I don't know, Google uses. There's some bunch of anti-spam stuff in there. Here's the subject of the email. Okay, who it's from, who it's to. The body is, I don't know why the body looks like that, but I know that snippet is actually the part that has the text. Okay. So that's OAuth Playground is great for learning about the response and also seeing what sorts of other APIs Google has. How you could play around with the calendar API, etc., etc. All right. Finally, in conclusion, I think OAuth2 is a great resource, and I learned a lot from this class on Udemy. Learn OAuth 2.0, get started as an API security expert. And he also has examples in there for PayPal, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So check it out if you have a hard time reading those APIs. Because basically what he'll do is he'll give you that link that you need to plug in the client ID, the authorization code, etc., etc., so that you don't have to read through those API pages to find out what the format is. Thank you very much for listening.